Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is having a wonderful morning or afternoon, whatever you want to call this time. We really appreciate you joining us today. We have a full house, so we'll just give everyone a few seconds to hop on and then we'll get started. So I'll see you in just a second. Hello again. We've had a bunch of people join in the last few seconds, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Erica Mendoza. I am on the education department of the DFWIMA board, and we are so excited to kick off our summer webinar with the hottest topic on the block, cookie deprecation. Google's latest announcement confirms cookie deprecation is a chance to kick the identifier addiction, not replace it. To be clear, there's going to be many alternate user level identifiers, just not built or used by Google. So the horse race is well underway. Join us today as we discuss this and shift towards an opt-in world. We'll be talking about what this means for brands, targeting, and measurement, and almost just as important, what does this not mean for our industry? Before we get started, on the housekeeping side of things, we're really excited to introduce our new community platform through GlueUp. All of our current members will be or should have received an email to set up their profile. And for those that aren't current members, visit glueup.com/org/DFWIMA/membership, or just email community@dfwima.org for more info. It's probably a little easier. But if you get GlueUp emails in your inbox, just know that they are not spam. They are from us at DFWIMA. Also, be sure to follow all of our social channels for the latest and greatest info on upcoming events. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And speaking of upcoming events, on that note, we are so excited to finally see your faces in person on September 30th because iHack is back. So mark your calendars and join us for our first in-person event since 2019. That sounds crazy to say out loud. Our annual iHack golf tournament at Stonebriar Country Club is returning this year. So we're really excited, and we're also looking forward to getting back to some fun educational luncheons, which we're planning for November. So stay tuned for more info to come on that. If you have any interest in sponsoring any of these upcoming events, please reach out to community@dfwima.org. And speaking of sponsors, we would like to extend a huge thank you today to today's sponsor, 50. 50 is turbocharging growth through humanized data. Built for a cookieless world, 50 combines human-powered insights with contextual targeting to grow, transform, and future-proof your media buying strategies. And I couldn't think of a more perfect sponsor for today's topic. And without further ado, let's introduce our wonderful panel today that is going to be discussing all things to come in our future cookieless world. So joining us today from LiveRamp, we have Travis Klinger. He is the SVP of Addressability and Ecosystem. Travis is an international business strategist working to repair an imperfect ad tech infrastructure and reestablish consumer trust. He believes that industry challenges like the end of the third-party cookie are just a euphemism for opportunity. He's currently leading a global team of business development, sales, and solutions architects who are committed to helping the world's marketers and publishers easily address individuals with 100% measurable impressions while protecting and growing their revenue in a sustainable way. From T3, we have Group Director of Connections, Sarah Hoffman. Whether they're signing a petition or clicking the buy button, Sarah has spent the last decade analyzing what motivates people to take action. She started her career in reproductive rights, helping brands like Planned Parenthood and National Women's Law Center find new ways to reach advocates through social media. Since she's been at T3, she's worked as the lead go-to-market strategist on brands like Capital One, Pods, ABM, Allstate, Waste Management, and UPS. Currently, she's the group director of the Connections Department, where she oversees a team of social strategists, media planners and buyers, and community managers who share her passion for insights, analytics, and smart consumer-first strategies. When she's not at work, you can find her on a hiking trail, a new restaurant, or volunteering for a local social organization or political candidate. And last but not least, we have DFWIMA's very own president, Chris Martin, as today's moderator. As a leader in the central US region for his company, Chris leverages cutting-edge media solutions, cross-device strategy, and a client-first analytical approach to achieving results. He's established exemplary partnerships with brands across the US by guiding them through the expanding world of ever-evolving programmatic advertising landscape and technical solutions available. His commitment to the success and growth of this industry is of the utmost importance to him. And now that we've introduced everybody, I really appreciate you all taking some time to drop some cookie knowledge on us today, as does all of DFWIMA. And enough of me. I will go ahead and hand it over to Chris. Oops. Sorry, to get this party started.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. Yeah, so real quick, to get kind of everybody engaged and firing right off the bat, we have a little quick quiz, 2 questions, so no big deal. But if you don't mind, go to menti.com and you'll see an entry, just a little area to fill in a code. So fill in that 8-digit code and we'll see you'll have 2 little questions to answer, and we're going to kind of play that up a little bit here. So Eric, if you want to stop sharing, I can share my screen. Thank you. Alrighty. So again, just go to menti.com and you can get on your phone, browser, pull up another tab, do whatever you want. But just go to menti.com, use that code, and then we can start seeing some of your answers here. So first question is, what word comes to mind when you hear the word cookieless? Let's give everybody a minute to. You just can fill in up to three words, and this will be a little word cloud. So we're going to kind of play, see what happens here with everybody engaging. Safer, okay, Safari, private, untraceable, no tracking. Cool. Google, that makes sense. Chrome, awesome. Anxiety, I was waiting for something like that. There we go. Unknown. Cool, we got about 14 responses, awesome. Contextual, yes, that is something we'll be getting into much for later today. Stress, data loss. Cool. Pixels, exciting. Okay, that's exciting. I like that one. Flock, that's actually funny. Leads into our next question here. Less tracking. Consumer first. Yes, absolutely. Walled gardens. All right, neat. Okay, cool. Well, we got 21 responses off that, so that was a great start. You can still join if you want, so if you missed this one, feel free to join the next question. On to the next, real last question, here we go. Today, we're gonna be talking about a couple things today, obviously with the cookieless world. So what would you like to hear most about today? We're gonna talk about a couple of these things, but we'd love to kind of get your feedback real quick, and then we can deep dive into some of these topics as we're in the middle of it all. And you can rank them. You can have like 1 to 3. So if you feel like just 1 is one important to you, just do that. But if you can add into 3, you can do that too as well. There we go. Data clean rooms. Okay. Authenticated and alternative identifiers seem to be leading the way. Okay, almost at 20, 21. Cool, awesome. Well, I'm gonna take a quick screenshot of that just to keep us on topic for today, because I'm sure we'll definitely get into some of these today. Awesome, okay, cool. So thanks for playing along. That was just a quick little quiz we wanted to have with you all. So let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, just authenticated and alternative. So we'll go through authenticated and alternative identifiers, data clean rooms, Flock, iOS 14.5, and then Chrome Privacy Sandbox. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for all you for joining us today. We have a great set of panelists today. I'm really excited to chat with them both. And Travis is almost on the other side of the world right now in Madrid, so he's joining us from international right now. So before we get started, I wanted to just give a quick kind of topic description to what we're going to be speaking about today. I know it means a lot of things to a lot of people, but as we know, like the cookieless ecosystem is on a time clock. It's kind of pushed back now, which is probably best for some of our brands and advertisers and marketers, as we know. But from its relatively naive origins as like a storage mechanism, it's evolved into a system of distrust in which personal data is bought and sold without consumer knowledge or consent, as many of us have known for maybe some years now in the marketing industry. But from a consumer standpoint, not very familiar with it, but we are seeing those people be more tech savvy. So rebuilding trust with consumers must guide our next steps, and we must better deliver upon the value exchange between consumers and content. So as mandates to change privacy practices occur, people-based identity solutions become key to the success of maintaining a free and open internet environment, which we'd all like to see. So these shifts are optimistic for all and will result in a great deal of innovation, as we've already kind of seen through some of the process in the journey so far. But consumers gain a better content experience and marketers gain improved ability to message audiences effectively. Really early results of testing cookieless solutions have been promising from most and some of our pre-conversations too, which we'll get to in a second. And it is possible to achieve a healthier data ecosystem while delivering increased ROAS. So don't be scared. But on that note, I'm going to kind of turn the page a little bit here on cookieless, since this is not the first page we've turned on cookies. I want to ask our panelists here. I'll start with Sarah. What would you title this next chapter?
I think repositioning the brand for the consumer would probably be the direction that I would go. I think we've leaned heavily for a long time on the ability to have cookies deliver right place, right message, right time, type of advertising. And as we look toward the future, the relationship and the way we deliver messages to users, the depth of the information we're providing, the quality of advertising is probably going to have to change. So I think my chapter would be really around reinvigorating the brand relationship, rethinking the go-to-market strategy, and changing maybe some of the reliance of, pieces of the funnel that we've leaned on really, really heavily for a long time, and start to create more robust strategies for our brands.
Great. And Travis, how would you title this next chapter?
Yeah, I think similar to Sarah, I would tweak it a little bit, and I would say regaining the consumer trust. I think, we became as an industry really reliant on third-party cookies. And at the end of the day, the third-party cookie facilitates a value exchange, right? So I go to a website this morning, I went and checked the news, and I got free news. Like, I didn't pay for that news. And in exchange, I saw some ads for some content here in Madrid in Spanish, which I had no idea what it meant. So it's like not the most effective. So advertisements this morning, but there was that value exchange happening. I was seeing ads in exchange for content, but very few folks understood that. And instead they thought of cookies as tracking them. Why, when I go and look at the lamp, does it follow me around? Like, I bought the lamp 2 weeks ago. Please, lamp, stop following me. Like, I have it already. And so I think we lost that trust. And then there were, some major scandals like Cambridge Analytica, and consumers got really interested in their privacy. And we saw browsers use privacy as a differentiator. I live in San Francisco. You can barely, walk a block without seeing an Apple ad about, privacy, and your face is hidden and protected by your iPhone. So as an industry, we've got to say, well, what we do, advertising powers the free internet. Like, we actually have a really cool role in keeping the internet free and keeping content free. And let's have that conversation with consumers on both the marketer and the publisher side. Let's explain what the value exchange is. Let's continue to serve relevant advertising. Let's serve personalized advertising, but give consumers transparency and control. So I think, as we embrace this new era, we've got to talk about cookieless, not only from the how do we make publishers successful and how do we make marketers successful, but most importantly, how do we regain the trust of the consumers and put them in control of their data?
Awesome. I love that. And then both those resonated with me, obviously, and others, I'm sure, well, with the consumer focus, right? I mean, that's been the biggest thing we've had challenges with playing in the walled gardens in the past. So this new focus and positioning is really kind of strong for the consumer. And as we've seen with all of our, the younger generations with the tech, as tech savvy as they are, this is just kind of playing in the evolution of technology. So it's great to hear that the consumer focus is coming back and then being front and foremost. So love your answers there. On the flip side though, what would you say the cookie deprecation or cookieless world of the future is not? Because we don't want to scare everybody and say cookies are gone all the way and you're never going to see those again. What would you say it isn't, so that people can kind of have a clear understanding of where we're going with this?
I think, like you've kind of underscored a few times, it's not something to be afraid of. It's obviously a moment in time that we, as Travis alluded to, as an industry, really have an opportunity and almost a calling card to rise up to and rise into, to be able to deliver solutions, not only for the consumer, but for the brands who are trying to connect with them. I think it's not the end of advertising. It's not the end of being able to build relationships with customers. It's not the end of media efficiencies and, retargeting, sequencing, being able to create depth of interaction with brands. It's also not a time that we can continue to rely on the strategies that we have maybe become used to and have become convenient for us and have been easy to explain. I think as an agency representative, we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can create efficiency by getting in front of the right person and trimming the fat. And we know exactly who it's going to. And we've told this amazing story about audiences and behavioral targeting and really getting, in front of the user and their decision-making patterns. We'll be able to do some of that, and it might also change the way that we approach the way brands show up in the decision-making process. And so I think it's not a time to rely on that story that's been convenient, and is not a time for us to assume that what we did before is going to work in the same way that it has. We really are at an impasse. We're at an inflection point where we can make some amazing decisions. People are bringing forward really strong solutions that I think not only forward the ability to change that trust profile that Travis was talking about, but also bring forward the ability to innovate and to do different things that we haven't been asked to do, but now we're being called to do.
Yeah, I think, Sarah, you said it incredibly well. Like I think a lot of folks look at the end of the cookie and it's like it's doomsday, and we should all be scared. And certainly it is a major change, but it's a good change. Like I think we all forget the cookie has never been that good. 4 years ago now, we co-founded the Ad ID Consortium. And I remember, when we announced this in London, we were talking all about the need to move to a standard ID, to people-based identity, all of the problems with cookie sinks, all of the problems with data loss, the problems with facilitating opt-outs across the world. And the third-party cookie has all of these flaws. And more the third-party cookie is not on the inventory marketers want. Third-party cookie is limited to one browser today, Chrome display. If I want to reach a consumer on Safari mobile web, on mobile and app, if I want to reach them on connected TV, if I want to reach them on their Internet of Things device, all of this is cookieless. The world is already very cookieless. I think, the cookie is definitely not the end of the world. It's a huge opportunity. And I actually think it's really good for this industry that cookies going away. And here's why. If you look over the past 2 years, all of the money has gone into two major platforms, Google and Facebook. Neither of them use cookies. Search and Facebook are authenticated. YouTube, authenticated. So these are places where marketer dollars are flowing into because they have people-based addressability. And the open internet in some ways has been hampered by the existence of the third-party cookie. It's been convenient. It works kind of, not well, but it works. So we're not going to improve. And as we've been working for 4 years to build a new ecosystem that works better. And we see this in case study after case study. People-based advertising just outperforms cookie-based advertising, and it makes sense. It's why the walled gardens get there. We ran a case study with Fitbit last summer, 2 times increase in ROAS. I'll give a little preview. We're about to release a case study next week that shows another massive increase in ROAS when you buy on people-based identity versus cookie-based. So we look at this as an opportunity, and frankly, I think the sooner the cookie is gone, the better for the industry. The Google delay is great in that it gives us time, but it absolutely should not slow our momentum.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm sorry, were you going to add something?
No, I was going to say we've had some kind of similar results or kind of anecdotes from folks in the industry on maybe an over-reliance on cookies and the efficiency that produced. I think the assumption is that behavioral targeting really reduces costs or increases the return on ad spend. But I was actually talking to someone yesterday about a test that they finished that didn't show any additional incrementality for the brand with that behavioral targeting because the CPM was so high and it didn't return very much from an efficiency perspective. And so I think that there's a lot of ways that we've, again, talked about the convenience of this type of targeting, that we've relied on it, that we've built systems of advertising around it. And like Travis said, this is a moment to pivot. There's people who have already pivoted. There's solutions out there. There's browsers that aren't using cookies. There's so many different ways that we can reach consumers that don't exclusively rely on the cookie. So I think it's less of the death of the industry and more of how creative can the industry get to maintain, a marketing trajectory that they had maybe once had and accelerated in different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, great kind of segue there, because you mentioned kind of both your experiences with cookieless testing so far. And I would say, since even though Google recently pushed it back 2 years, like, how are you all, preparing your clients for the loss of cookies today?
It's full steam ahead. We are moving forward. I think the analogy I was giving earlier this week when talking to a marketer is, we can all switch our phones to 3G, and none of us do that, right? Like 3G still exists. We could all use 3G. But it's really slow. It's just not that fun. Instead, we're all on 5G, or we're on LTE and moving to 5G. And the idea is, it's a better way. Will 3G one day be deprecated? Yeah, like eventually, just like some of the previous cell phone technologies, the towers will stop supporting 3G and folks will be forced to move to 5G. But folks are moving now because it's a better experience. It's the same with people-based advertising and cookieless solutions. Like, if you can get better ROAS, better results, why would you not take those today? Again, cookies are limited to Chrome. That's 60% of display in the US, and in some markets, even less. And it's less of that in the mobile web. And so if you want to reach your consumers, a lot of your consumers are going to be only on Safari, only on Firefox, only on Microsoft Edge. You can reach those through cookieless solutions. If you want to reach high quality CTV, that's a cookieless solution. And so, you can get better results today. So I think our message is the cookie delay, it gives the industry some more time to adopt, and that's going to be great and give folks a little bit of a breathing room. But at the same time, there are solutions that work today. They are deployed today. And they work better today. So as a marketer, why would you not go ahead and move to people-based identity, especially when it includes all of the cookie scale plus all of the other great stuff? That's the beauty. We live in an era for the next 2 years where you get all of the scale of the cookie plus all of the scale of the authenticated people-based world, and you get it all at the person level. And so I think it's a really exciting time for marketers who go ahead and make that transition. And we're going to see some sophisticated marketers really benefit from that over the next 2 years.
Yeah, the authenticated ID that Travis is mentioning is certainly something that we've been exploring. I think in addition to partners who, provide access to different types of IDs, I know we're all likely very familiar with Trade Desk and their UID 2.0. There's a lot of partners that have solutions. Obviously, LiveRamp has a lot of ways in, the Ad ID Consortium, Newstar. There's been many tangential formats, I guess, of the ID. I think part of what we're trying to explore beyond the ID is some additional ways that brands can really start to collect, hydrate, segment data that they have more control over. Because I think one of the things that the industry still doesn't officially know is what the opt-in for those IDs are going to be. So when we think about more of those authenticated solutions, we still don't know, is everyone going to opt in to, giving that email, to being targeted? What's that going to look like? And so we're ensuring that we're picking partners who have these types of solutions, whether it be full authentication, some sort of a combination. God forbid it's cohort based, like Google is suggesting. And we're also working with them to determine some additional strategies that will help up-level their earned data, thinking about ways that they can place the user at the center of the brand experience. How can they remove friction and fragmentation in their data ecosystems? Is their CDP ready? Do they have a CDP? Are they using a DMP? How have they been using it? How hygienic and clean is their data? So we've been working with a lot of clients to build the infrastructure. And I think that's where we're very grateful to have the additional time, because I think many folks let that piece of their own data, their relationship with the customer, fall maybe to the back burner, especially with the ability to reach so many of those folks through cookie-enabled media, that there's been a little bit of cleanup that we've had to work with them on, in addition to some of our own cleanup of finding partners who can provide solutions like Travis is mentioning, or like some other partners are providing that help us get to that authenticated ID.
Awesome. And that's a good segue too. I was gonna say, I'm glad we brought that up. So kind of flipping, kind of deep diving a little bit more into like the authenticated or alternative identifiers. Just a quick, and also on Flock, because it kind of goes into the same various identifiers that are going to be impacted. Flock is, just for everyone's knowledge, it stands for Federated Learning of Cohorts, and it's Google's alternative to third-party cookies, and is based on machine learning. So this allows the browser, any browser, to anonymously study in how users are browsing and then group them into quote unquote cohorts. Following this, they'll be able to serve ads based on the cohort, not on the individual data. So that is Google's kind of next step, is Flock right now. That actually, it's kind of funny because Chrome Privacy Box Sandbox kind of came out to be the fifth what you want to hear most about. Well, that's because Flock is being kind of pushed forward now. Chrome Privacy Sandbox is now on the back burner for for Google. So flipping to the switch now at an industry level, like how are various identifiers being impacted? You can kind of talk about authenticated, alternative identifiers, or Flock, whatever your expertise is in. I'll let you guys kind of chat about that. What have you seen, I guess, make the most change? Travis, I'll throw it to you.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, if you look at the future of the cookieless, there's going to be no silver bullet. That's the bad news, right? There's no one solution that's going to solve all your problems. You're going to instead have tiers of solutions. So your gold standard, we believe is going to be authenticated. Users sharing their email address, their phone number, they're logging in. You get that people-based addressability, people-based frequency capping. It's 100% deterministic. You have the user in a trusted relationship, so it's a much more brand safe environment. So it's just higher quality inventory with that login event. It's most comparable to your walled gardens. At that point, like, this inventory is just like Facebook in terms of addressability, and just like Google. So I think it's, one call out I always make is folks often say a Google solution is Fox, and this is true for Chrome, is for Fox. But Google, the world's largest publisher, is not using their own solution for their owned and operated inventory. Search and YouTube are not going to use Fox. Instead, they're using authentication. So I think that's very telling that Google is saying, hey, industry, here's one product for you guys, but by the way, we're going to use this other one. And I think that's a message for the industry of authenticated is that gold standard. I think after authenticated, you're going to see a blend of cohorts. So I think you have flocks. We really like the parakeet proposal. out of Microsoft. I think it's a little bit more transparent than the Flock proposal. I think marketers are going to have to learn how to leverage these Flocks and understand them and target with them and measure with them. I think the downside is the measurement gets really messy. If you're targeting a cohort of 100,000 people, how do you tie that to in-store transactions? And how do you know if those folks actually converted, especially when it can never be linked back to your own data? And then I think rounding it out as contextual. And to me, contextual is something you would use with all of them. You should always be buying with context in mind. Like you can use contextual with authenticated and you can use contextual with the Flocks as well. So I think that those pair well together.
I think Travis hit the answer perfectly. I don't have anything to add, really that deterministic, probabilistic, and then contextual pieces and how they work together has really been a focus of ours, and looking for partners who can provide some variation of all of it. I know that, lots of folks have their own solutions coming out. We've had some interesting conversations with Quantcast, with Verizon, who are coming to the table with more of these integrated solutions that include some of that probabilistic, the deterministic piece, and then the contextual piece. So I think, for folks who are making decisions around partners, who are thinking about, different elements that they should choose, maybe it is a Flock for you. I don't know that it will be for the folks at T3, but I think that these are great words and things to start introducing into the RFP process, into conversations with vendors, to understand how do they see a mix of data? What integrations are they proposing? What solutions do they have that really allow you to create that depth of the cookie without the cookie, and what are they preparing to do to be able to not only provide that level of targeting, but then also help you when it comes to reporting? Because I think that that's a piece that we haven't discussed as much that really is changed a little bit by the cookie environment and has not been resolved by Google solutions, is reporting. The way we think about user behavior, the way we think about conversions, and I do think we're going to lose some visibility in there that we will likely have to anticipate and maybe come up with creative solutions around. But I would say, everything that Travis said, all of those pieces working together and picking partners and asking them questions about those elements has really been in the forefront of our strategy.
Awesome. Yeah, halfway through, so we're kind of getting through all these, which is great. I kind of want to pivot a little bit here to, we talked about kind of authenticated identifiers and targeting and things like that, of that nature. Flipping a little bit more into like the data side of things, and like in which terms of data, like I guess whether in terms of data collection or utilization, most clients' first party data is largely cookie dependent and will shrink. So like what advice would you give to clients to reshape their first party data strategy? And Travis, if you want to kind of speak a little bit more to like the data clean rooms that you touched on a little earlier, and then Sarah, if you wanted to kind of follow up and kind of give us a little more insight to like the Chrome's privacy sandbox, and just kind of give us a little idea there. So Travis, what do you think?
No, so I think, to your point, a lot of first party data today is cookie based. If you're using your DMP, you're immediately building a segment the moment a user lands on your site. So now the question is, how can you get that user to share their identity with you, their email address? So I can give an automotive example. We were talking with an automotive maker not too long ago, and you can build the car, right? So you can customize the car on the site. You're going through, but people drop off all along that process. And today they would just retarget, based on your cookie. But at the end of that car building process, they ask you, they say, can we have your email address and your location, so they can connect you with a dealer and then, sell you that car. Why not take that process, that registration, and bring it to the beginning? So that to build a car, you have to share your email address. I think that's what we're going to see more and more as marketers really say, how can I get identity from my consumers? What's the value exchange? A lot of e-commerce sites will do, you get 10% off, 15% off your first purchase to sign up for a newsletter. And then you've got a relationship with it. There was a brand that really impressed me yesterday. They sent me an email via, and said, hey, we've noticed you haven't clicked anything in our newsletters recently. We're going to go ahead and unsubscribe you unless you're interested, and then click this to go through. I clicked that and went through. I was like, no, I still want to get the emails. And it's to me, that was a great thing of saying, hey, we're not going to bother you. We recognize maybe you're not getting value from this relationship anymore. tell us what you want. And so I think brands should do that, because that click-through I made then authenticated me on their site. And then they were able to see what I browsed on their site. I was really impressed with that. I was like, I love this email that they sent. And then I think on publishers, it's the same thing. How do you get more registrations? Registrations don't necessarily mean subscriptions. They could be email newsletters. They could just be content walls. They could be text alerts. I often think of weather sites. Weather is kind of a commodity, right? Like I can just Google the weather and it's going to pop up and tell me what I should do. But so living in San Francisco, you get to wake up to cold. It gets pretty hot in the middle of the day. And then it gets really, really cold at night when you're going out to dinner. It would be great if I could get some text messages like throughout the day saying like, hey, by the way, like the wind is really picked up. You should maybe bring a jacket, things like that. Here's how you take weather and make it a value add to the consumer and less of a commodity. So to me, that's, all these ways of getting first party data. And then, and Chris, to your point, some brands are never going to be able to get first party data, right? So like CPG, that's my laundry detergent. I'm probably never going to share my email address with them, but I really like laundry detergent. Like it would be really weird if I didn't, if I don't have laundry detergent, that would be a problem. And I buy that regularly. And this is where second party data collaboration comes in. And so this is an area we spend a lot of time working with brands on is, can we take retailer data, for example, and make it available to CPGs in a second party relationship? Can you power trade campaigns with that? We just announced a massive partnership with Carrefour to do this around the world, in Europe and in LATAM. And in APAC, and we just announced this a few weeks ago, of all of these CPGs can benefit from the Carrefour retailer data and get that second party understanding. So, I think in priority of data, first party is always going to be the best. If you can get the consumer to share that with you, that is the gold standard. If you can't, go to second party route. And then there's always going to still be third party data, right? Third party data based on authenticated experiences. If you're a FinServe client, you probably know the demographics of your user. You want this, and you can go to an offline data provider and you can get that. So I think all of this data can then be connected to the authenticated inventory and can drive that experience. And then importantly, you can measure all of these effects. So let's take the laundry detergent example. If a CPG brand ran that second party campaign of laundry detergent buyers, could they then show at the SKU level with the retailer that I went and I actually upsold, instead of getting like the basic laundry detergent, I bought like the expensive pods, that's, because CPG is all about buying more and upselling to the more premium brand. Can you do that? And that's exactly what like our partnership with Carrefour and with other retailers enables them to do. And so I think you get this enormous cycle, this virtuous cycle, where the data drives better inventory experiences, which drives even more data for the brands to drive even more personalization. So, but all gets down to, can you offer consumers something valuable to be able to share the data? That's going to be the key for publishers and marketers going forward.
I think the only build that I would add to that, in addition to the first, second, and third party data, is zero party data. So how can we start to mine better insights from our consumers for our brands? Can we get some sort of picture of them, of their interests, of their behaviors, of their habits that they volunteer on their own? I know one of the examples that we have at T3 is a CRM campaign we did for Pizza Hut, where we asked users to tell us their favorite football team. Who do you follow? Who are you rooting for? Select that data. We then connected those responses to the NFL API and then triggered an email 1 hour before their NFL team was about to play, because they told us that they were a Seahawks fan or they were, a Cowboys fan. And we were able to leverage those insights that they provided to us to create marketing that was incredibly relevant and also contextual. And so you can use even more of that type of data. I think that's where brands will have to get very creative, and where the depth of the relationship is going to need to be expanded and maybe re-strengthened, because we focus so heavily on return on ad spend and tracking performance and hitting the consumer with, buy, get. We actually forgot a lot about their relationship with the brand around the things that they valued from us and from the products that we sell. And so I think that piece and the reintroduction of the relationship into the ecosystem through zero party collecting strategies will only help round out some of what Chris talked about with that first, third, and second party data. You asked specifically about the privacy sandbox. I feel like it's a little bit removed from the conversation, just in that, Google's, and I'm not here to bash Google. We love Google. They're a great partner of ours, but I think that the solutions are light in building confidence around the application of the different types of data and how data could be used for marketing purposes. We've talked obviously about the flux, they just paused that test. And so we'll see as more results are publicly shared what the impact of flocks were as a part of that kind of sandbox toolkit. They have Turtle Dove, which is their retargeting strategy. They have the fencing solutions, which kind of keep the advertiser from collecting any information that would be passed back from the advertising website. So really fencing off in a frame the ad and stopping the pass back of data. They obviously have, some of their like measurement solutions in this aggregated API and conversion measurement. So I think the sandbox has a lot of pieces, but I think what Google still needs to figure out is how those work together. There's so many proposals for what's in the sandbox for all of these tools that get advertisers closer into the user and help with the measurement of the performance of media, but it just doesn't feel close enough to being a solution yet that it's a place to pivot or a place to key into as much as first, second, third, and zero party data feel like right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, and since that's actually kind of funny you said in connection with, and I was kind of thinking the next question real quick, and I know we have about 5 or so minutes and we can wrap up. And thanks, Ethan, for that question. I will like to ask that question in a minute here. But would either of you like to give us a quick 1 or 2 minute, just kind of where you think the state is with cookieless going away or cookieless kind of world coming, and then iOS 14.5, since that was one of the other topics we wanted to just briefly touch on. If anyone could just give us a little insight there, that'd be great.
I can take a quick stab at it and then turn it over to Sarah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like what we're seeing with ATT, the app tracking and transparency framework is similar to what we're seeing with the end of the cookie, right? So Apple's coming out and saying, hey, we're going to also use privacy here as a competitive advantage for our devices. Users have to give their consent. I think this is actually a really great opportunity for every app publisher who often own display sites as well to learn how to have that interaction with the consumer about the value exchange. And I'm really impressed by some of the pre-prompt screens we've seen for iOS 14.5. At first it just started with, do you consent? And the consent rates were low. And then publishers started rolling out these prompt screens. And we've seen ones that up to 3 different screens of pre-prompt of here's what you're getting. You're getting, Facebook is a great one to their credit. You get personalized advertising. The app is free. And I think this resonates in the time of COVID, where, it helps small businesses as well. So here's 3 great benefits to click yes. I have to say the BBC did an amazing job about the freedom of journalism and how they provide all of this content at no charge. This is exactly what we need. Publishers defining their value exchange. Now, would I have done it in the way Apple did it? Definitely not. But I do think it pushes the industry in the right direction. And then it also ties us to, if you get that consent, get a people-based identifier as well, and then move from a device-based identifier to a consented people-based identifier. So I'm actually very optimistic. We've seen opt-in rates now as high as 60% when you have the right pre-prompt screen. And that tells me that consumers are willing to share their data if the right value exchange is presented to them.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I would introduce some conflict into the conversation, but then the way that Travis summarized that, I think really feels like a good takeaway that, I've been kind of focusing on, which is really what is the value exchange and what do we provide when we spend advertising dollars? And I think this notion of deepening the value exchange and creating a better, access point or return for the user is going to be important. The original iOS 14 updates, what was it, like 25% of people opted in? That distrust is just so high of big tech, big data, all of these large companies. And, as advertisers, I think we've kind of propelled a bit of that. We got to benefit from the system. And I think it actually tore us down a little bit in terms of consumer trust. It used to be that people saw ads and it gave them confidence in what a product was and why it worked for them. And I think we've got a little bit more work to do to get back to that place before I would maybe have the optimism that Travis has in people's willingness to consent. I think though that, we're really in a moment in time where brands have the opportunity to rethink the strategy and maybe the emphasis on what media provides for them as they make money. And we've likely overemphasized the role of media in how the brand generates revenue, how it sustains itself. And so I think this is a position for advertisers to think about what are the other ways beyond media that we can really elevate the consumer experience. Is it on-site? Is it CRM? Is it better products? Because people are willing to provide information for something. A great example is Google. People use Gmail all the time. They're tracking the heck out of you and it's free. And as soon as you say, okay, well, you could go to another email provider, you have to pay for it. Oh no, I don't want to pay for it. I want free email because that's a great benefit to me. So let's make better products. Let's make a better mousetrap, even beyond just what media provides, so that there is that value exchange. I think that that's the moment in time that we're in. I think there's a level of optimism, and I also think there's a real challenge. Can we push brands to rise to the occasion? Can we really fight the competitor that is privacy and distrust of the consumer base to build not only better advertising, but really better interactions with consumers?
You mentioned a few things there that I think this Ethan's question plays well into. So I know I'll throw a little curveball at you all, and this is not on our prompt. So I'm going to ask Ethan's question here, and feel free to answer. And then I have one last question. We'll kind of wrap things up. I know we're at that 40-minute mark, which is our sweet spot. So I'll kind of get things going here. So thank you for the question, Ethan. We love that engagement and just kind of people, chime in here. So where do you digital/social social tokens fit into the consumer first ecosystem? We are counting on Web3 to solve the fundamental shifts. So anyone want to take a stab at that, or Web3 and how that kind of plays into this?
I feel like it should be you first, Travis.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the meaning of by digital tokens. I mean, certainly like social logins, I think definitely integrate in with an authenticated ecosystem, and we've seen the SSOs can be connected to that. But yeah, I apologize. I looked at that question and I was like, "Ooh, I don't entirely get that one." So I was hoping, Sarah, I was hoping I'm gonna toss it back over to you.
I can give a little bit of a description on that. We don't have to talk too much about it, but it's a good question. Web3 just fundamentally is kind of more based in blockchain. So if you understand blockchain, how the ledger works and how that authenticity of that is not distrust. It's like kind of the opposite of the distrust of like big tech. So since it's more of a consent of amongst the others than just like one platform centralized, it's decentralized. But the social tokens aspect is like about some of the communities and how you can get more ingrained with some of the value exchange. So in Web3, you can really monetize your individuality much more than like we kind of prefaced in the very beginning, how like all the cookies are taking all the value, extracting that value out of us, and then all of our big tech partners are just using that and making all the money off us. So the Web3 is space, it's coming, and there are ways of kind of having that authenticity to measure consumers and to provide that exchange. And like you mentioned earlier, Travis, like that prompt I guess you got about like leaving that subscription. If you give an email, they'll give you exchange back, and that could be an exchange of like social tokens. And then those social tokens can give you access to exclusive things or events, et cetera, et cetera. Don't have to deep dive into that too much. That could be another great conversation in the future. But to pivot back to cookies, and the last question I have for both of you, and then we can close up, would be, what advice would you give brands and agencies to best prepare them for the cookieless future? And what do you think the cookieless world will look like in 5 years?
I can start. I think the advice that we're giving to a lot of brands right now is to just get smart on what's happening in the landscape. What's going on, what do these changes mean, and then where are there holes? If we start to say that, we're going to leverage a strategy with more first party data, do we have the data that would support that at scale? What do we need to do to be able to get more data quickly so that that can be a new part of our strategy? Do we have second party data partners, third party data partners? How have we started budgeting for now having to potentially pay for data in a different way than we might have needed to previously? Obviously thinking about partner choices, preparing them for shifts in plans that might not only introduce new solutions like ones that LiveRamp are providing, MIQ, obviously Trade Desk, Quantcast, Verizon, any of those folks that might be new to their plans, but also, are we going to foresee some sort of pivot in the marketing objectives? Are we going to have to maybe rethink the strategy beyond just paid, but also the integrations of owned and earned and loyalty and retention? And what does that look like as we start to map out the mix of their marketing program? So I think that there's really going to be a focus, and the folks who are thinking about the entire ecosystem, and I hate to be an advertising person who says the word ecosystem. I didn't say holistic, which I think I should get points for, but anyone who's thinking about the ecosystem is likely going to benefit, because what they'll start to identify is where there are gaps, where they've been underserved in any of their infrastructure, in their strategy, that could be offset with new solutions that the industry is bringing to bear.
So I love the word ecosystem. It's actually in my job title, so I'll own up to going with that buzzword. But no, I think, Chris, I actually recommend a lot of the same of what Sarah recommends. Brands should be testing now. Any brand who is sitting there and saying, "Oh, it's a good sad relief, the cookie is here for 2 more years," that is the wrong move to have. First, 2 years go by really fast. If we think back in January of 2020, that's almost 2 years ago when it was first announced the cookie was gone. And it's strange because of course, COVID made time go slow, but also time suddenly went really fast. And we burned a lot of that timeline. So 2 years is going to be here before we know it. And second is, if you can get better results today, why wouldn't you? As a brand, especially in this new time where ROAS is so important, go and get better results and build better relationships with your consumers today. Now is the opportunity to start testing these solutions, to start pivoting to them, to get the benefit of the best of both worlds. I think, I'll lean on the ecosystems thing. If you're in the ad tech ecosystem, a publisher or an ad tech platform or MarTech platform, I think it's a huge opportunity to build something better here. We've got to make sure that the open internet survives, and not only survives, but thrives in the post-cookie era. So, when I look 5 years down the road, what I'm really hoping for is there's a chart today that shows time on the internet. 50% is spent on the walled gardens, 50% is spent on the open internet. But then money, 90% of the new spend last year went into the walled gardens. I want that to switch. I want it to be 50-50. I want the open internet to get the right amount of dollars for the timeshare. I want the open internet to be on a level playing field with the walled gardens so that we can have better competition. We can have a better internet for the consumers, and we can have a better experience for marketers and publishers. So that's what I'm really excited for. As Sarah mentioned, maybe I'm a little bit of an optimist, but I definitely look at the next 5 years as a huge opportunity for the ad tech world.
Awesome. Love that. And we're about to be at time, so I'm just going to rattle off a few key takeaways that I took from our conversation today. So one, just the cookieless environment is a good thing, but it's creating a value exchange between content and consumers to keep a free and open internet. Cookieless strategies drive innovation and new ways of approaching people-based identity, which we've seen and heard. These changes also can actually improve performance outputs by using more sophisticated strategies, as Travis and Sarah have mentioned as well. And then also marketers should prepare for auditing and organizing their own consumer data if they have that at hand. And then it's last but not least, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution to identity. So it will take many partners to accomplish your goals sometimes, but also take it in stride, take it step by step. So know you'll have resources that'll be coming out. If you need any help as well, you can ping these friendly friends on LinkedIn and get more details. But again, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Travis. Really appreciate your insight and all your thoughts on this. And then another big thank you to our partner 50 for sponsoring this webinar and bringing this education to all of our members at DFWIMA. And last but not least, do not forget about iHack. It'll be our first in-person event in over a year and a half, which is insane to say. But we're really excited about that. It'll be at Stonebriar on September 30th. We will be sharing sponsorship packages in the next in the day or so. So you'll be seeing that coming shortly. So keep look at your emails. And if you do not get that email, please email community.org, community@DFWIMA.org. And if you know anybody on the board as well, you can reach out to us. We're always happy to help. So thanks again, everybody. Look forward to seeing you at iHack. We are taking a break. We're not going to have an event next month, and we're taking a break until iHack, and then we'll be back into it in November. So thanks again. See you all later. And if you want, Sarah, Travis, thank you again for your time today. And Eric, I appreciate you.
Bye, y'all. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.